Welcome to the final Trachtenberg School Alumni Panel of the spring semester. So really excited with this topic on AI in the future of public service, careers, and impact. Thrilled to have such an interesting group of alumni joining us today. I can't wait to learn and hear more about their experiences. So what I've asked them each to do is to provide an overview about their career path and their current work with a focus on AI and how AI has threaded into their career. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A from our attendees. So Christina, you are first on my screen and first to log on, so I'm going to start with you today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Prenville. I'm currently a research analyst at the Urban Institute, where I focus on AI and racial equity and social sector innovation. A little bit about me before I get into my work. I'm originally from Broward County, Florida, and I come from a mixed status Haitian household. So before my current role at Urban, I would say what really brought me into kind of working in technology policy overall was that I worked with an organization called the World Justice Project, focusing on access to justice and technology. And back then, we weren't using big buzzwords such as like data readiness, but we were creating an assessment tool that assessed essentially the data readiness of developing countries to implement more access to justice technologies. So when I came to Urban and they were telling me about this really fun project funded by Google that would be looking at local government and helping them like essentially ask them what is their unmet needs as they look to implement more AI, more specifically like looking at Gen AI overall as well. I was more than excited to join. And so from that project, we were able to create a report that looks at where the unmet needs of local governments as they seek to implement AI tools and policies, and basically how can organizations like nonprofits like the Urban Institute be able to help them to do so and things like that. So from our research, I'll just really quickly touch on a framework that we created that touches on how local governments are looking to implement AI in what we call a three-tier framework. That tier one, which is like digital assistants like ChatGPT, things like that. Tier two being constituent communication, kind of like translations or chatbots, which we're seeing a lot of chatbot regulation happening now in local government. And then that tier three being the last, which is like solving complex problems. But overall, it's been really fun being able to do this work. And I think more so than anything, just showing that like anyone can be in this space if you're like willing and interested to kind of do the work and know the information because it's constantly evolving. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and my current work.
Fantastic. We already sure lots of questions already coming in, thinking in their head. Ryan, we'll pivot over to you next.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan LaPrairie. I graduated from Trachtenberg in about 2012. But my story kind of starts at undergrad, where I went to Grand Valley State University in Western Michigan and received a degree in cultural anthropology. I'm very excited to learn all the different, ways in which culture impacts behavior and integration between cultures and how that affects mindsets and actions. At the end of my term there, I said, well, okay, how are we going to apply this? And they said, well, you can keep studying, which I wasn't really interested in. And then they were also kind of mentioned that there was a new career that was coming up called a corporate anthropologist, which essentially helped global companies kind of integrate, multicultural environments to make sure that you had high performance. Few and far in between in terms of the availability of those jobs. So, like most graduates from bachelor's degrees, I joined the Peace Corps and spent 2 years in West Africa. There, I had learned a lot more about cultural integration, and even though I had a background in technology, just odd jobs and things like that, I wasn't using any type of technology while I was in Africa, except for the Stone Age kind. When I came back from Africa, I had a short stint in the United States Census Bureau before coming to Washington, D.C. to GWU. There at Trachtenberg, a few of my colleagues and I created a small discipline on disaster management. So this is like humanitarian aid and leadership in crisis and disaster management. So I thought I was going to be kind of running toward disasters and humanitarian crises after that. And so I joined the American Red Cross. But because of the technology background, I was kind of put into an office space and helped them with develop software to help them manage their projects. So I actually did that for a few years with the Red Cross and also with an independent company. And then I got a phone call from a friend of mine who said there's this job called a change manager working for a technology company called Blue Wolf. And I said, well, what's that about? I'm like, oh, these are people that kind of help, people adapt to new software and deal with kind of cultural shifts and behavior shifts. And I was like, oh, so this is what the corporate anthropologist turned into. So I joined Blue Wolf and then went to IBM. And now I'm here at Salesforce. So at salesforce.com is where I because was continuing that change management work. And AI had been around, it has been around for quite some time now, for about a decade, in enterprise usage, but mostly for predictive analytics and for pattern recognition. And it was really kind of relegated to a small group of people who were able to access the compute that was necessary and the code that was necessary. And then here comes 2023 when generative AI hits the scene that essentially kind of gave the keys to everybody to be able to engage with AI with natural language. And at that point, I realized that this is probably the biggest change that I may ever see in my career. And so I really kind of leaned into it and kind of held on to my running toward the disaster rather than away from it. So right now, I work in a unit called the Responsible AI Unit, where I take the approach to implement AI and agentic software systems in a responsible way that considers the employee impact, the customer impact, the organizational impact, and even the societal impact. Right now, regulation is really all over the place with AI, so it's important that corporations, as they implement these things, are able to make sure they do it responsibly and ethically, and to protect, both the employment of their teams and actually build trust with their customers to use this tool. So a lot of the skills I learned at Trachtenberg, such as like governance structures, management in crisis, leadership, culture, really apply right now as I'm coaching executives to say, well, this is how you want to look at it, and this is how the change is going to bring. Because we can't look at this as traditional software. It's not just here's a tool and here's how to use it. It's really a capability. And so we got to think about like how we want to apply this stuff, treat it like it is a truly enhancement that it is. But again, doing it in a way that is has the correct guardrails around it and make sure that there ensures both like ethical and responsible use. So that's where I am today, continuing to drink from the fire hose every day because this is a very challenging environment to be in, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Fantastic. From drinking from the fire hose, Keely, where are you at?
Hi everyone, I'm Keely. Hi everyone, I'm Keely Jones. It's nice to be here with you all. I currently am working with Booz Allen Hamilton as a human capital and a strategy specialist, specifically for one client that's actually the Cyber Academic Engagement Office, if you heard of it. To give a bit more about my background, I'm sorry, did I hear something? I first started out interested in international development. My first exposure to the Arabic language was in middle school, and that kind of really changed the trajectory I had. So with Arabic at the time, it being like, I would like to call it the language wave of like trying to get critical languages and a path for students and employers and to the government to know languages. So I was part of that wave. So that was like my first introduction to a culture and a language outside of mine, and it kind of stuck with me. So I actually went and studied abroad. I went to Denison University and I was able to study abroad. And I came back with I got my bachelor's in sociology and anthropology with a focus in Arabic and dance. And so after I finished my bachelor's degree, I was like, I want to go back to Jordan. I want to experience, international development work. And I knew that was the best way I could do that. I went and I actually was able to get there through the Critical Language Scholarship that some of you might be familiar with in order to continue to study the language. But that was the summer after I graduated. However, I didn't choose to take my flight back because I was like, okay, that was like a couple weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months. I want to stay longer. I signed a waiver saying I wouldn't use my, I wouldn't take my flight back home. And so I gave myself 3 months. But luckily, I was able to start working with USAID. So everything about like my trajectory was focused on, I actually wanted to be, I wanted to get my PhD in anthropology. However, after spending 5 years working in international development abroad, I realized, okay, that's a little bit more limiting, and I wanted those more of hard skills. Fast forward, I'm at Trachtenberg, taking my Master's of Public Administration. And I would say I didn't start applying after graduation to positions until July, and I was hired by mid-September at Booz Allen. And I had a very great, I've been having a really great experience. There has been hiccups, as there is, but I started with my focus on human capital, more so strategy design, as well as interagency and international focus. However, my initial client was more so focused in another area. I was able to build skills in logistics and infrastructure for big, large event planning. And a lot of those skills that I learned at Trachtenberg, I was able to utilize, and it really felt like my day-to-day was like a capstone project. So that was really enlightening for me. One thing about Booz Allen that I really liked is that and I thought it was weird at first when I would always hear people who graduated with me in undergrad and are still with Booz Allen. They had allowed there's this flexibility in choosing your path and finding the work that fits with you. And with Booz Allen being like the top provider of AI support to the government, there's courses that we can take internally and get a certificate to help build our understanding, with that being a hot topic in our climate. And luckily, get my focus being less on cyber, I was able to find an area that I could apply the skills that I had, which was my objectives and key results framework, using ProSci, ADKAR, IC Agile, type of methodologies that I've learned along the way and that are really important for a lot of government contracts. And I was able to focus those skills. And as a consultant, you have to basically advertise yourself and make people know like what you're good at. And I wanted to be known as a problem solver and working in having worked in international development as well as interagency. And when I went to go look for my second project at Booz Allen, I submitted, sent out my information, and then it fit with the Cyber Academic Engagement Office. They were able to, that's the office that I support. Is quite new, and I would say it's been open, up and running since almost a year now, but it's very new, and all the things about cyber and DoD funds will be ran through our office, which is kind of, given this climate, very scary. But it's going. And one thing I really enjoy is that the skills I learned at Trachtenberg can be applied to almost any field. And then the focus on AI, if you're able to enhance those AI or those cyber skills and couple it with this managerial type aspect of programming, as well as strategy design, that can give you a leg up, especially in the public policy and public administration world of AI. Thank you.
Fantastic. Definitely, Keely sounds very excited by it. I love it. This is great. Elliot, we're going to move over to you all the way out on the West Coast.
Yeah, sorry, it's still the middle of the workday here for me, so look frozen on the screen, so I don't know if you can hear me.
We hear you.
Yeah, so my name's Elliot Fleming. I am a business manager in the Office of Responsible AI here at Microsoft. I'm the team's first business manager, so the role is a little bit building the airplane as you're flying it, I would say, among this team. Although I guess that's this field in general. For background, I spent 8 years in DC. The last 5 of which I was with the Brookings Institution, and I was chief of staff there for the final 3 years. And during that time, so thinking back to about 2017. Ryan, a lot of your responsible AI conversation obviously resonated with me, but thinking back to 2017, a lot of the conversation around artificial intelligence was about kind of the ESG implications of what it would look like. What were the ethical concerns? We're talking about ethical AI, and really thinking about these like big existential threats was like a big part of the conversation. And at Brookings, we founded an artificial intelligence and emerging technologies program out of the president's office, run by a guy named Chris Meserol, who's now the executive director at a place called the Frontier Model Forum. And we really started to think about like what are the actual practical implementation implications of AI, and what is that going to look like, and what are going to be the downstream effects on day-to-day life. And so we started thinking about it from a different angle, and that really kind of resonated and aligned with how the industry was starting to think about it. And so purely through osmosis as chief of staff there, I kind of just started to learn more and more at an early stage as the field was kind of developing. Always had an interest in it, but didn't necessarily see myself pivoting that direction. And then I had the first kid and we moved to Alexandria, and I had the second kid and we moved to Mount Vernon. And all of a sudden I was taking all my vacations to the West Coast to see family. And so we started to reconsider what life looked like. And so I thought about life outside of DC and coming back to Portland. Portland's a little bit the middle child of the West Coast for just about everything. So I figured if I was gonna, kind of maintain a career trajectory, it was probably gonna be Seattle or San Francisco. And fortunately, at Brookings, Microsoft was one of our major partners in funding some of the research that we did initially. And so I had always had good interactions with them. I liked the culture. I liked the team. I liked the kind of responsible perspective and who they were hiring into the field. And that was really the only job I could think that would be interesting to do. So I took a year off. I played golf, didn't get any better, and then this job popped up, and and I pulled one string to apply for it and applied for it and ended up getting it. And so at Microsoft, the responsible AI is has grown to be still a relatively small team comparatively of other orgs across Microsoft, but it's unique inside of Microsoft in that we touch kind of every aspect of the stack across the board. So we're dealing with customers and also with engineers and also with developers and also with attorneys and also with regulators and also with policymakers, kind of across the board, because we are in this place, I think, where we want good regulation. We want regulation across the board. It's responsible. It's the right thing to do. And also, we live in a world where most people are still behind the curve, I think, in their knowledge of what this is. And so it's a really, really exciting, interesting place to be, and also incredibly challenging, especially given, the geopolitical dynamics, in addition to like the domestic politics, in addition to just like, basic public diffusion and adoption of AI. So yeah, I didn't anticipate, I think 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said this is the direction that I want to go. I've had a couple of happy accidents along the way that have got me here just by kind of saying yes to opportunities, but I'm certainly kind of bought in going forward.
Fantastic. And now we'll go to New York City with Nick.
Hi, thank you. I'm actually in DC today, believe it or not. So I'm based in New York, but and I have been so for 25 years or so. I think I beat everyone. I graduated from GW in '97. We got my MPA in '97 when it was still part of the business school. So President Trachtenberg was president of the university at that time. So, and he spent a lot of time in our program and later became a professor. And then later the school was named after him. So I did have a brush with greatness while I was there. He was a very nice guy. But I'm happy to be here. I mean, the hearing you guys and having to go last, it's a little bit hard, but I'll do my best. You'll see, I've spent almost equal amounts of time in both private sector and public sector. Before I went to GW, I had spent a couple of years after undergrad. I went to University of Buffalo. There I started to work for Senator Moynihan in his Western New York office as a regional aide, legislative assistant, caseworker, things like that. And it really was a blessing, because I think if you have read up on Senator Moynihan or know anything about him, he was probably one of the last great statesmen, if I do say so myself. He's just a great mentor. I was invited to come work for him in DC after I graduated from Buffalo, and did that for a year or so. Didn't make a lot of money doing it, but was having a blast. But I had an opportunity through the community work that I was assigned to with him to work for one of our U.S. territories in the Western Pacific, the Mariana Islands. And it was an opportunity to work for the governor of that. And it's not a territory, it's a U.S. Commonwealth, which they'll call you on. And it had just become a U.S. Commonwealth, and they were looking for people who really understood how legislative affairs works, how U.S. Congress works, because the Commonwealth maintained its sovereignty over wage and labor laws and immigration laws. So as a new, I'll say territory for lack of a better, simplify it, but they wanted to grow their economy. And one of the things that I was asked to do was help integrate the islands into the U.S. Telecommunications plan, North American numbering plan, get it a U.S. area code. It was still an international call. It was $3 to $5 a minute, to call this place, and it was the closest U.S. soil to Asia. So the phone company was a U.S. phone company. It was GTE at the time. I launched a plan to not only get us into the U.S. numbering plan, but also build a fiber optic network that would connect our islands, submarine fiber system, to Guam, and then to points east in Hawaii, and points west in Asia, to get us more reliable, less susceptible system to weather and typhoons that those islands are known for. Successfully ran an RFP process, got to know companies like AT&T and phone companies in that part of the world, and really got to understand telecommunications from the ground up. And that became something that I kind of hung my hat on. From there, we built a public utilities commission for the islands, wrote some of the regulations, and you know what? The business community liked it, because now you could predict your phone bill. You could predict what it was going to cost to add more lines to the hotels or to a restaurant. And it also created more transparency, which the phone company didn't necessarily like, into how much revenue and the phone company was generating in international toll calls and things like that. It became the basis for my application to GW, believe it or not. I wanted to move back to DC. I had friends that I had made in DC, and I used that as a basis for my application. It ended up becoming part of my capstone. There were some professors at GW that were part of the AT&T GTE breakup in '82, and I wanted to learn from them. And it was just a great avenue to come back to DC. I focused on public finance and strategic management, so I took a lot of courses from the business school, but got the MPA. And from there, I went to work for Booz Allen. So Kaylee, we intersect at Booz Allen. There, I got to do more critical infrastructure, wargaming, public-private partnerships around, what happens if, the phone system goes down for the Eastern US. Who moves first? First responder stuff. Somebody attacks the banking system, what happens? So I got to learn about critical infrastructure and build on my telecom experience. And from there, doing white papers and wargaming was fun, but it wasn't all that interesting. And I got recruited by another firm, Arthur Andersen, to move to New York and do telecommunications consulting for the private sector, for commercial, for corporations. And it was there that it just opened up for me. I had a lot of fun working with the big telcos, cable operators, etc. Arthur Anderson, I was there during the Enron crisis. We went out of business. I went to work for one of my clients, was a cable operator, and learned everything about the cable business, building again another plateau in the critical infrastructure telecommunications industry, and learned how cable works, how content flows over those networks, how you build for content, how you understand who's watching when and on what platform. So I started to understand and apply data science and some of the statistical methods that I learned at GW into predicting or forecasting, where to run ads, what to run, and things like that, and helping out our advertising business. So it just kept on building, right? And GW is the basis for that. From there, I went to Deloitte and helped Deloitte start their cable and media practice. Was there for almost 7 years. Was on a partner track. Had made senior manager early. Was doing it was probably like 2 years out. Was doing my partner pitch, and some work that I was doing for Verizon got picked up by the CFO. It caught the interest of the CFO to build a content delivery network for the company. So putting all that experience together, but building a system for Verizon. So moving away from copper networks to fiber and wireless and moving content over all those different networks to any device anywhere in the world was something that was too good to be true. I didn't want to turn down. So I was head of design and product for this business called Verizon Digital. We launched in 2015. We turned it into $1 billion business inside of 5 years. We started doing acquisitions, put myself out of a job, really, acqui-hires, things like that. Tucking in technologies into, our platform that we didn't have. And from there, went to IBM. And so, Brian, I was there during the Blue Wolf acquisition. But I was part of the media and entertainment practice, telco media and entertainment practice, building platforms like we were doing for Verizon, but for other companies who would hire IBM to build and manage content delivery networks, or use Watson, right? If those who remember Watson was one of the first AI platforms. It competed on Jeopardy. It beat everyone on Jeopardy. We used Watson for everything from predicting communications traffic and rerouting traffic to predicting audiences to doing things that Netflix later became known for, which is predicting what kind of show you wanted to watch and serving it up to you on your device wherever you were, right? So anyway, so long story short is I was there for about 8 years ish, and really got into deep AI there, right? Immersion into AI and cloud. Partners, Elliot with Microsoft, doing a lot of joint, hybrid cloud, types of integration, systems interoperability. I was called by Alvarez and Marsal to form a new practice. If you know Alvarez and Marsal, we're about deals, debt, and distress. We're a boutique that was started back in the Lehman Brothers days as a boutique restructuring firm. And I'm like, well, I knew some people here because of Arthur Anderson was one of the firms that they restructured or liquidated, right? And I knew that they took some of my friends over here who had been here for a long time. So the opportunity was interesting, and it put a different spin on what I amassed in terms of a skill set. Now applying that to due diligence and investing, looking at companies and the way organizations operate and seeing how they do it, and putting an evaluation on it, or identifying better ways to do things, or applying technology like AI to take some of the cost out of the way they do things. And I've been doing that. I've been here 2 years, but about 6 months ago, because a lot of the work I was doing crossed over into public sector, regulatory, things like that. They asked me to help set up the chief AI office for our public sector practice. So that's why I come to DC a lot, and I'm working, everything that Doge is you read about. We're not really, we're waiting for the dust to settle, but the conversations we're having are, so when it does settle, how do we do this, right? And it's all about modernization. So if you had a blank slate, the questions we would offer, if you had a blank slate or endless supply of budget, how would you issue visas tomorrow? Or how would you, regulate broadband tomorrow? Things like that. So those are the kinds of conversations we're having. We're building, we're not doing PowerPoint. We're actually, and for a boutique like Alvarez, we're building things for our own firm just as much as we are for our clients, like, using agentic AI to process contracts. Like we issue an RFP response, we get awarded the project, it becomes an SOW, that SOW becomes a task in a workflow system that we've designed, and we're going to export that to the rest of our firm. But we're just trying to show, live, practice what we preach, eat our own dog food kind of thing, and teach our own people how things could operate better, especially in the public sector where, what's the incentive, right, for doing things more efficient? What's the competition? Well, the competition is you might not be voted in next year or 2 years from now. So there are incentives. We just have to help the client figure out what those incentives are. And so that's the commercial aspect coming to bear now in public sector and creating some urgency, right, for change. And it's been fun. So I'll pause there. I know we're well into the time, but
so what I'm going to probably do, Nikki, I'm going to move us into Q&A, and I'm probably, because we don't have as it's a smaller group of participants, I'm going to probably pivot a little bit more into Q&A at this point. We're not going to do the breakout rooms, and we'll have this in there, and we'll just have hopefully an engaged conversation at this point a little bit more with this. I know that we have some attendees that had some questions and wanted to come in with us, so I'm just going to open this up to our attendees if you have some questions for the panelists about this work. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Fantastic, Sherelle. Have turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sherelle Hines. I'm a first-year MPA student, and I was really excited to join this session because I feel like AI is the talk of the town. And I just wanted to ask, what do you guys feel would be the best tools and key strategic resources that we can take with us during our MPA journey for the future of AI and future roles? And how do you see it navigating in the public sector? For me personally, I'm in the Air Force, and I see how slow rolling it could go with this new technology and getting things approved. So what can we do now as students to prepare ourselves for AI, and how can the public sector adapt?
Big question. Who wants to tackle that? Who wants to start? That's great questions. Yeah. Elliot, you ready? Go on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I think about pretty frequently, especially I think in this group probably, for anybody that is involved or is seeing kind of the back end development and kind of the pace of this. I think we went through stages here where when ChatGPT came out, people were like, wow, this is incredible, this is amazing. And then it was like, but really, what can you do with this? And I think what you don't see is, you kind of get the pace of it and if you pay attention to it, but what you're not seeing is the back end development that's occurring and how quickly these models are advancing and how quickly and useful they are becoming, and how, yes, there are mistakes and there are, there are hallucinations, but they are getting better. But more importantly, and perhaps this is a Microsoft perspective as well, I don't know, sometimes I think I'm in a bubble a little bit, but the day-to-day work is going to change kind of fundamentally for everybody across the board. And I do think that companies, Microsoft included, are almost holding back a little bit on announcing or where, I think some of this can go from a work perspective. So I think what's really interesting is what you should learn to do is, one, pay attention to the news, stay on top of the new technologies, understand what these systems can do and how they can be utilized. Try to step outside of, ChatGPT organizing your budget or being a personal companion for you, and really start to think about what are the ways or how will my work style change, and how can I what does that free me up to do? What am I good at, and where can I kind of approach that? And so I realize that's not a technical answer for what you could study. You could learn to code, although I think low code options are going to continue to be more and more available for creating your own kind of AI environment. But if you want to go that technical route, that's always an option. But I think for the average kind of worker across, the Air Force or across most industries, what you're going to see is like, what are the things that a human can do to manage a group of like tasks, and like what is your role in that, and like where are you looking for efficiencies inside of that system? How are you able to like adopt those systems? What are like new opportunities, ideas that come out of that? So those are all like kind of unknowable questions, but I think you got to figure out, you got to understand the landscape. I think is a thing you can do right now, and I think that's what most people are not doing. At least in my personal life, like I don't think people are really like prepared for what the next 5 to 10 years will hold.
Right. Keely, I saw you raised your hand.
Thank you, Elliot. That was a really good explanation. And Terrell, thank you for your question. I think if I'm thinking about my trajectory, working more so as a consultant for a private sector that heavily works with DoD, one thing you should consider is like your area of focus. AI and cyber is extremely broad, and what I think we or those who have been part of our school has that is puts us ahead of the curve just in any field are those technical skills. I would say the best thing you could do is right now is think about that track. Do you want to go government? Do you want to go private sector? Once you know that, do you want to be more so at the forefront of that coding, or do you want to help do strategy and design or change management? With my focus mainly shifting from I came in as working on change management and process improvement. And then I started saying I wanted to get more involved in AI and data analysis. So just looking at those skills that can be transferable for me was most important, such as I know Power BI, knowing how to use that, and other sources, things that can be used across sectors. If you really want to get a basic baseline of AI and cyber, I mean, a lot of people say it's one of the harder tests to take, but the Security Plus CompTIA training, that is a very good basic. I wouldn't say basic because a lot of people say it's not, but if you have a little bit of understanding of AI in that world, that looks very good. And with our skill sets and the pretty much the technical skills we get, I know a PMP is very highly desirable, especially in the government. So that's help me out, Denise. PMP. I forgot what certificate it is, but it's
people know what it is. It's the project management.
perfect.
I can't think of
Yes,
either.
I think when you look at it that way, I didn't necessarily want to be at the forefront of coding, but I did want to have to work on those strategies, those DODs for the government, and I've been able to position myself to do that in the AI sector.
I can go next. Unless somebody, okay. So I'm going to take a more practical route. So imagine, like you said, you're in your first year. So something that I think people don't, that I would say is like very interesting to do is like stay informed as much as possible. And so something that people don't leverage, which I had a mentor that told me, and this like actually changed my life, is that use your LinkedIn for information. So what I would do is that I would repost every single thing I see. Well, not every single thing, everything I see that interested me in AI, I would repost it, or I would like it, or I would comment it. And so what happens then is that your whole feed now becomes this thing that you're liking. Like you're using the system to your benefit. So now to the point that I ended up, like last week, I was able to go to a conference that had to do with like nonprofits and technology and intent, and I got the scholarship to go to that conference. And that all happened before then. I didn't know much about this organization, but like I was able to do that by using LinkedIn, by reposting everything, by seeing different things, and then also too, like something that's like very important for you to stay informed as well is like where are the organizations, where are the people that are doing the work that you're interested in. Like for for us and for the space that we're doing, working with cities and things like that. The National League of Cities, like NACO, different things like that. When they're having conferences, what can you do? Like, can you get involved? Can you go virtually? Things like that. Like I would definitely agree with Keely in terms of what is the trajectory of like what are the pathway that you're trying to take. But if you are here and you're just like, hey, I want to get involved, but I don't know where to start, then you just go to people who are already there. Who's already there, and how can I learn from them, and how can I place myself in those positions, kind of like you're doing now, right? Like, how can I place myself in those positions to gain information from those people so that I continue to level up and become better. But that LinkedIn one is my favorite one as well. And I've been able to tap into a lot of newsletters and find some really cool newsletters of things that's going on. So I constantly know what's going on in the field.
Anyone else want to add?
Sherelle, have you tried connecting with other military alums or alumni to see their trajectory if they're in cyber or AI? That might be along the lines of what Christina said. Some people, I know that when I was looking for position, the GW alumni were extra stoked to connect.
And
Yes,
there's an alum I'm thinking about right now that I'm drawing a blank, but I'm Sherelle, I'm going to send you her name, who's military. I'm drawing a blank on her, but she actually just taught the AI class this semester.
Oh, wow. Okay, yes, please send me her name. I'm part of the GW vets, but I haven't specifically met someone within this field, so that would be great. And
I'm gonna have somebody else talk, and I'm gonna be able to remember who it is and put it in the chat. Does anyone else have another answer for Sherelle?
I'll just kind of say very briefly when I echo what others have said, but just start using it. The challenge that I see with most of our AI enterprise customers is there's a wild range of understanding of what it can and can't do. So my recommendation, subscribe to a service. 100% will guarantee it'll be worth your money to use one of the premium services and see what is really good about these things, what are some of the limitations, and don't be intimidated. You know, one of my colleagues said, "Well, Ryan, I don't even know how to write prompts." I'm like, "Well, then ask it." I mean, that's what you can do. You can just ask the Chat GPT to say, "I want to build a bot. How do I do that?" And I want it to do this, and it will help you kind of learn. So there's a cyclical relationship that happens there, and the more you know about it, the more you're going to see applications of it and seeing where it can be most useful.
thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Patty, I think we're down. I know that you had expressed a strong interest in attending today. Do you have a question for our panelists?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I was very interested in the topic and happy to see it. And it's always great to get GW alums together. And, you know, such a benefit of GW, the wide variety of experiences and paths to get to where people are. So it's been very interesting to hear that. I am a federal contractor still at the moment. And most of my work has been for Department of Education. The thing that really grabbed my attention with the title of this is sort of the impact of sort of AI sort of on public service. Thank you, Elliot. And just sort of thinking about you know, what kinds of things might you recommend to those people who are in public service right now, especially what's happening to the feds, where AI really is getting pushed in on them, whether they are skilled at it or not. It's you know, part of their environment now, and just wondering what you see as, you know, how to you know, advise them or just make them come up to speed quickly. Ryan, I appreciated kind of what you were saying. It's like, just do it. You know, a lot of it is just do it, you know, that kind of a thing. But just curious with what you've seen or your perspectives on kind of the push in now with AI into the day-to-day work, or the encouragement of that for what a lot of the federal workforce is doing, and just sort of your reactions. And I'm just really curious on that.
Yeah, I can start there. I mean, I think that it's important to understand both the capabilities, but also understand your work. And something that we do with our clients is to say, diagram your work. What is all the different jobs to be done that you go through on a day-to-day basis, and then put it into three buckets. what are things that you don't like doing, take a lot of energy, and put that in what I call an automation bucket. See if AI can automate those things. Then look at the things that take a long time, but is really like high cognitive load and very difficult. So that's where you want to augment. So how can you use generative AI to create content, to research for you? And then there's also this third category, which I think a lot of, at least our corporate customers, don't think enough about is what do you want to remain as human? What do you want to keep as a human to human interaction? And when you kind of create that, three columns, that kind of takes the control away from some, big executive or high level official to say, this is how I want you to use AI. You're like, no, this is how I want to use AI. And it puts the kind of you in the driver's seat to say, I know my work, I know what's valuable. These are the different areas where I think it could be valuable, where we can, reach people we haven't been able to reach before. We can close gaps that already exist, and we can really scale the services that we have now that we don't have as many people available to do that.
I think it's fantastic what you just said and thinking about that. I really appreciate that. I like that.
I'll piggyback off that because I totally agree. I think the cognitive dissonance that exists between, the vision of AI that a lot of people have, which is like, I'm either going to be working or not working. Like
Yeah.
it's not binary, right?
Yeah.
It is a tool to be used to create efficiency, to streamline, to augment, right? But even the most advanced agents at some point are at least in the coming future are going to be useful tools to augment processes. And the second thing I'll say is like I want to double down on the architecture piece, right? Is like figuring out your work architecture and figuring out what your work does. I think everybody struggles with this idea of like what is a task versus a project versus like what am I doing? Really being able to like identify what are the places where I don't have to necessarily be involved at every moment, but I can oversee what's happening in that place, right? That's another like useful future piece of AI where we'll be able to. It's not just about automating processes because you can already kind of do that. It's about allowing a system be able to like reason over and choose the correct path like over a series of steps and processes, and then also knowing to Ryan's point, like where should a human be involved both in the system and also where should AI not be involved at all in the system, right? And I think some of those sensitive uses, I still sometimes think that we're in a place where we're talking about sensitive uses. We're kind of stuck, I think, in two worlds, I think, in the industry right now. One is like the like privacy and like digital images and that piece, and then like the existential like CBRN threats and like nuclear bombs and things like that. But I think there's a lot of middle ground of human happiness, utility, job satisfaction that are going to be continually part of the conversation that I think we've just barely touched on as far as sensitive uses and things like that going forward.
Thanks. Great.
Yeah, Patty, the only thing I would add, and I can't agree more anymore with these guys, is there's a lot of courses out there, a lot of free courses. Coursera is a good. I'm not sure if you're probably aware, but I mean, Coursera, LinkedIn. There's lots of venues that offer courses. Getting hands-on and understanding, the differences between not just chatbots or LMs technology, but there are different types of AI, right? And there's probably eight or nine different classes now of AI, right? And understanding which type of AI is good for certain types of jobs and when it doesn't make sense, understanding what automation is, autonomics is, things like that can really help you, understand and maybe people get less anxious about what it means for their jobs or their work when they start to understand how can I use this. What the point that Elliot's making about keeping humans in the loop, is more about being able to explain, what the AI is telling you or determining or quantifying, being able to have trust in what it's building or doing or saying because you're part of the design of it, or part of the qualifying of the training that it went through to do what you're asking it to do or designing it to do. I would say just try to immerse yourself as much as possible, or find ways to time in the day, to do that, because it's enlightening. And it's kind of like, there's an epiphany that I had, at some point, where I said, this is like if I had my cake and eat it too, kind of thing. I can use this, but also focus on more value add things. I don't have to write the SOW necessarily. Okay, great. That's great. But now I don't have to deal with, the back office and contract and all that stuff either. If I can figure out the workflow and how to orchestrate it and get it to do it for me, and just give me a dashboard that says where it is at some point in time, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, but I'm taking less of my day, focus on the administrative, to focus on more strategic value add things for my clients. That's the fun that I'm having with it. But that came from learning about it and testing it out first, before I recommended it to guys people I work with.
Thanks.
I love that example, Nick, because like it's exactly right. Like I think there's no easy path to like adopting in some ways, and I think it'll get easier. But like I've spent countless hours reading, like diving into like the technical side of it, but like also I'm not super technical, so trying to understand some of that, and then like taking the courses and like trying to understand. And then I think at some point you do have that epiphany of like, oh, I understand what this can do.
Yeah.
So how do I import that into my own workflow or my own process? And like that moment of like realization, I think, is really big, because you stop imagining all the ways that it could replace you, and start to imagine how like you're gonna be happier or more efficient at your job.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there is a learning curve associated with it. But I think it's an important learning curve. I think we should understand how these things like are operating and working, and like the answer they're giving to Ryan and Nick's point, like it's not a useful system if you ask it a question and it spits back an answer and you don't trust it, so you just go read the policy document anyway, right? So like you do need to kind of understand the build behind it.
Any other comments before we wrap up? This ended up being much more of an engaging, which is what I thought it would be, of a conversation. We are almost out of time. Any final thoughts from any of our panelists?
I just want to get a little bit add to that last point. And Patty, you mentioned that you were in education, and I do think that AI is going to revolutionize education. And the reason why you're able to do that is you're able to get that custom content delivered to you in the way you want it. I'm not technical like Elliot, even though I work for a software company, but I was like, somebody explained to me retrieval augmented generation and this RAG thing that, is the core part of this. I said, explain this to me like, in a metaphor to like a sixth grader, So it took that very complicated concept, and it was like, okay, imagine you're at a winery and you don't go for a wine, specific wine, but you say these are the types of things that I do like, and then the sommelier walks back and brings you like 3 different bottles that are like what you like. And I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. Someone is lack of technical skills as I do, and now I understand it in a way that I never would have got to that point, no matter how much documentation I read, no matter how many webinars or Coursera that I would get, they didn't get it. But like AI has a way of just creating this engagement to any level that you want. And in fact, the active was this morning. My daughter's like, I have a Spanish quiz. I'm like, what's it on? And there was like, it was on family relationships. Went to Claude, went in using their new Sonnet, and Claude built a web application to give her a quiz, like with just this kind of a single prompt. And I'm like, this is amazing what this could do for like targeted education. Because if you think about how many times you've been in a situation or in school, right, where it was like, there's just one piece that I just can't wrap my head around. And that like holds you back, particularly in things like math, right? If you don't get that concept, it really hampers you. But now we're able to take any complicated concept and really get it to a format that individualized to each of these people, right? And you can apply that same thing to AI. Like, how do I use AI? Start there. Like, just ask ChatGPT, what's the first thing I should know about using AI? And then it just continues to build, and you start engaging with it, and then your enablement, really kind of flourishes, and your understanding of it grows exponentially because you're getting that like tutor, right there on your computer.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we are going to wrap up. That was, I appreciated that, kind of bringing it to that level. As a parent, I appreciate it. And as a human who's like, gets very overwhelmed with all of it, I like that. And maybe now I need to go and open up a bottle of wine with that information. But I thank our attendees for coming today, asking great questions, and our alumni. I think this is going to be a panel we will be doing every year, and there will be, it's interesting because last year there was a smaller group of alumni that I could search for and found was involved in AI, and that numbers are growing more and more, and eventually it will be that we won't even be doing this because it's part of what everybody is doing. So I am interested to see how that unfolds. So thank you all for your time, your insights, your expertise, and everything that you are doing. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you.